It seems like everywhere you turn these days, it's all about hustling and grinding and maximizing every single second.
Yeah.
But what if I told you that maybe
Mm-hmm.
one of the most productive things you can actually do is hit pause? Today, we're taking a deep dive into the science of sleep and rest.
Okay.
Now, you've probably heard before that sleep is good for you.
Right.
But today, we're going way beyond just counting sheep.
All right.
We're going to really uncover the fascinating science of why sleep is so important.
Okay.
And we'll also explore some practical strategies for improving your sleep and rest habits.
Yeah, it's true. We often think of sleep as this passive state where our brains just shut down, but it's
Okay.
actually a time of intense activity.
Really?
Yeah, our sources show that sleep is when the magic happens. It's not just about, feeling less tired, but about, cellular repair, hormone regulation,
Hmm.
memory consolidation,
Yeah.
emotional processing, so much
So
more.
it's not just about quantity then, it's about
Yeah,
quality.
absolutely. And to understand that quality, we need to delve into the different stages of sleep.
Okay.
One of our sources does a great job breaking down the science of non-REM and REM sleep and why both are essential for us to function at our best.
Okay, let's unpack that. I know non-REM has a few different stages, right?
Yes, non-REM has 3 stages, and deep sleep is especially important for physical repair and hormone regulation. This is when your body releases growth hormone, repairs tissues, strengthens your immune system. Think of it as your nightly tune-up.
Oh, so that's why you wake up feeling groggy if you don't get enough deep sleep.
Exactly. Then there's REM sleep. That's the stage associated with vivid dreams.
Yeah.
But REM sleep is more than just entertainment for your brain while you're sleeping. This is when your brain processes emotions, consolidates memories, and even makes connections between things that seem totally unrelated.
Hmm. So if I'm trying to learn a new skill or solve a complex problem, getting enough REM sleep is really important.
Yes, it definitely plays a big role. One study we looked at had students learning a new motor skill, and the ones who got enough REM sleep did much better than those who were sleep deprived.
Wow, so maybe those all-nighters aren't such a good idea after all.
Right. More and more research suggests that getting enough sleep consistently actually can boost academic performance.
Interesting. Now, you mentioned that one of the sources debunks the myth that everyone needs 8 hours of sleep. I'm curious to know what the research actually says about that.
Well, it turns out that sleep needs vary quite a bit depending on age genetics and other individual factors. For adults, 7 to 9 hours is a good general guideline, but teenagers need more like 8 to 10 hours because their brains and bodies are still developing. And for young children, it's even more 10 to 12 hours for optimal growth and development. But even within those ranges, individuals will have to figure out what works best for them.
So it seems like a lot of us are walking around with this chronic sleep debt. What are the consequences of not getting enough sleep, both in the short term and the long term?
Well, in the short term, you're probably familiar with feeling tired, irritable, and having trouble concentrating. But it goes beyond that. Sleep deprivation also affects decision making, impairs judgment, and slows your reaction time. In fact, one source pointed out a pretty alarming statistic that drowsy driving can be just as dangerous as drunk driving.
That is scary. I definitely wouldn't want to be on the road with someone who is sleep deprived. What about the long-term effects of not getting enough sleep?
That's where things get even more concerning. Chronic sleep deprivation has been linked to a lot of health problems, including obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, weakened immunity, accelerated aging, and even cognitive decline. One study we saw found a connection between chronic sleep deprivation and an increased risk of developing Alzheimer's disease later in life.
Wow, that is serious. So it sounds like sleep isn't just about feeling good. It's actually fundamental for our health and well-being. But we're not just talking about sleep today. We're also going to dive into the idea of rest. Is it really just as simple as taking a nap when you're tired?
Not at all. Rest is a much broader concept than that. It includes any activity that gives your mind and body a chance to recharge and recover from the demands of daily life.
So it's more about giving yourself permission to truly unwind and de-stress, even if it doesn't involve actually sleeping.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that rest can take many different forms. Our sources talk about several types of rest, including physical rest, mental rest, emotional rest, and even sensory rest.
Okay, break those down for us. What do those different types of rest actually look like in practice?
Well, physical rest can be passive, like just lying down or taking a nap, or active, like going for a gentle walk or doing some stretching. Mental rest is about giving your brain a break from tough cognitive tasks. So you might step away from your work for a few minutes, do a relaxing hobby, or just let your mind wander.
So it's about finding activities that help you turn off your brain and recharge.
Exactly. Then there's emotional rest. This is about creating space to process and express your emotions. It could be things like journaling, talking to a trusted friend, or practicing mindfulness meditation.
I love that. So it's about actually acknowledging and tending to your emotional well-being rather than just pushing those feelings aside. What about sensory rest? That's a new one for me.
Sensory rest is all about minimizing the sensory input we get from our increasingly stimulating world. It could be dimming the lights, reducing screen time, minimizing noise, or spending time in nature.
Hmm. So it's like creating a little sanctuary for your senses, a
Mhm.
place where you can truly unwind and de-stress.
Exactly. And what's great about all these types of rest is that they complement each other and they contribute to better sleep quality. When you make rest a priority, you're not just reducing stress and improving your focus, you're also preventing burnout and setting yourself up for a more restful night's sleep.
That makes sense. So we've explored all these different types of rest, but I'm curious about how they all fit together. Is there like a specific order you should do them in, or how do you kind of balance them throughout the day?
Hmm. Well, there's not really a set order. The key is to just be mindful of your own needs and pay attention to those cues that your body and mind are sending you. Like if you're feeling physically drained, maybe it's time for a quick stretch or a walk around the block.
Okay.
And if you're mentally exhausted, maybe step away from the computer and do something more creative or relaxing.
Right. So it's all about being in tune with yourself
Yeah.
and recognizing when you need different types of rest.
Exactly. And you might find as you start to incorporate more rest into your day that certain types of rest naturally lead to others, like taking a break for a walk in nature might help clear your head. And then that allows you to process emotions more effectively, which leads to a deeper sense of emotional rest.
Hmm. That makes sense. It's like a ripple effect where one type of rest kind of enhances the benefits of another. But let's talk about some practical strategies for actually improving sleep. I think we can all agree that getting enough sleep is super important,
Yeah.
but putting it into practice can be a challenge.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. One of the most common things I hear is, I know I need more sleep, but I just can't seem to fall asleep, or I can't stay asleep. One of the sources we read really got into this concept of sleep hygiene, basically those habits and practices that help you sleep well.
Yeah, I've heard that term sleep hygiene before, but to be honest, I'm not totally sure what it means beyond like the basics.
Well, it's not just about how many hours you're sleeping, but about creating the right conditions for quality sleep. It starts with your sleep environment. Make sure your bedroom is dark, quiet, and cool.
Okay, so like
Hmm.
invest in some blackout curtains, maybe use earplugs if you need to,
Hmm.
and turn down the thermostat a few degrees.
Exactly.
Right.
Your brain associates darkness with sleep, so minimizing light is crucial. Temperature is important too. Your body temperature drops naturally as you fall asleep, so a cooler room can help with that process. And then, of course, there's noise. If you're in a noisy environment, white noise or earplugs can be helpful.
So it sounds like it's all about creating this sense of calm and tranquility in your bedroom. But what about those racing thoughts that keep us up at night?
That's where having a consistent sleep routine comes in. One of the best strategies is to go to bed and wake up around the same time each day, even on the weekends. This helps regulate your body's natural sleep-wake cycle, so it's easier to fall asleep and wake up feeling refreshed.
That can be tough, though,
Yeah.
especially when it's so tempting to sleep in on the weekends.
Yeah, but it seems like consistency is key.
Yeah.
And in addition to having a consistent sleep schedule, creating a pre-sleep wind-down routine can be really helpful. That might include things like taking a warm bath, reading a book, listening to calming music, or doing relaxation techniques like deep breathing or meditation.
Right. So it's about kind of signaling to your body and mind that it's time to transition from the busyness of the day into a state of rest.
Exactly. And something people don't always think about is the impact of what we eat and drink before bed. Avoid heavy meals, caffeine, and alcohol close to bedtime, because those things can mess with your sleep quality.
So even though that late night cup of coffee or glass of wine might seem relaxing, it can actually backfire.
It definitely can. While alcohol might make you feel drowsy at first, it can actually disrupt your sleep later in the night. And of course, caffeine is a stimulant, so it's best to avoid it for several hours before bed.
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of both of those. It sounds like building healthy sleep habits takes a lot of awareness and intention. Are there any other things that people can do to improve their sleep hygiene?
Regular exercise is another important one. Physical activity can improve sleep quality, but try to avoid really intense workouts too close to bedtime.
So getting your heart rate up during the day can actually help you sleep better at night.
Yes, it can. And if you're still having trouble sleeping even after making these lifestyle changes, it's always a good idea to talk to a healthcare professional. There might be underlying medical conditions or sleep disorders that need to be addressed.
All right, it's important to rule out any medical issues that could be causing sleep problems.
Yeah.
But for a lot of us, it might just be about making those lifestyle changes and developing better sleep habits. Now, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about those racing thoughts that can keep us up at night. Do any of our sources offer any advice on how to deal with those?
Absolutely. One technique that a lot of people recommend is journal. If you find that your mind is racing at night, keep a notepad by your bed and jot down any thoughts or worries that are keeping you up. This can help you get those thoughts out of your head and clear your mind for sleep.
Like giving those thoughts somewhere to go. So they're not just swirling around in your head all night.
Exactly. Another good strategy is mindfulness meditation. This is where you focus on your breath and observe your thoughts and feelings without judging them. It can help calm your nervous system and quiet those racing thoughts.
So it's about learning to observe those thoughts without letting them take over.
Exactly. And if stress is a big factor in your sleep problems, it's important to make time for stress-reducing activities. This could be yoga meditation, spending time in nature, listening to calming music, or doing hobbies that you find relaxing and enjoyable.
So it's about finding things that help you de-stress and unwind. But let's be real, we live in a really busy world. How can people actually fit rest into their already packed schedules?
That's a great question, and it's something a lot of people struggle with. One of the sources suggested actually scheduling rest into your day, just like you would schedule any other important appointment. Block off time in your calendar for a short nap, a walk in the park, or some time to just read a book or listen to music.
So it's about being proactive and making rest a priority, not just something you squeeze in if you have time.
Right. And another strategy is to be more mindful of how you're using your energy throughout the day. Avoid overcommitting and learn to say no to things that drain you. Delegate tasks when you can and focus on activities that energize you.
So it's about setting boundaries and putting your well-being first, even when it feels like there's not enough time. But I think it's important to remember that rest doesn't have to be this big, elaborate thing.
I totally agree. Rest can be woven into our days in small but meaningful ways.
What are some examples of those smaller moments of rest that people can easily work into their lives?
Well, it could be something as simple as taking a few deep breaths, stretching at your desk listening to a calming song,
Hmm,
or stepping outside for a few minutes to connect with nature. Even a couple minutes of intentional rest can make a difference.
I like that. It's about finding those little pockets of stillness throughout the day, even if it's just for a moment or two. But I think there are a lot of misconceptions out there about sleep and rest, like people thinking that napping is lazy or that you can just catch up on sleep on the weekends. So let's debunk some of those myths.
Yeah, let's. Let's start with the idea of catching up on sleep. While a short nap can help if you're tired, it's not a substitute for consistently getting enough sleep. That chronic sleep debt can have serious consequences for your health.
So no matter how tempting it might be to pull an all-nighter and then try to sleep for 12 hours straight on the weekend, it's not a good long-term solution.
No, it's not. Another common myth is that napping is unproductive. But actually, short naps around 10 to 20 minutes can actually improve alertness, cognitive performance, and creativity, especially if you take them in the early afternoon.
So instead of reaching for that extra cup of coffee,
Mm,
maybe a quick power nap is a better way to go.
it could be. And then there's that myth of the rigid 8-hour rule. While 7 to 9 hours is a good starting point for most adults, it's important to remember that everyone's sleep needs are different. Pay attention to how you feel. If you consistently wake up feeling refreshed and energized, you're probably getting enough sleep.
So it's not about getting hung up on a specific number of hours,
Hmm.
but about finding what works for you and listening to your body.
Right. And one last myth I want to address is the idea that rest is something you have to earn, or that it's a sign of weakness.
I think that's a common belief in our culture, where busyness and productivity are often glorified.
Yeah, it is. But the truth is, rest is not a reward for working hard. It's actually essential for a good life. It's about recognizing that we can't give to others if we're running on empty. When we make rest a priority, we're not just taking care of ourselves. We're also better able to be there for the people we love, to go after our passions, and to make a positive impact on the world.
I love that. So it's not selfish to rest. It's actually an act of self-care that lets us show up as our best selves in all areas of our life.
And exactly. And when we model that behavior for others, we give them permission to do the same.
It's like we're saying we're not willing to sacrifice our health and well-being just to be productive. It's about reclaiming our time, our energy, and our peace of mind.
Right. And it's about realizing that rest isn't something you get as a reward for hard work. It's actually a crucial part of living a good life.
Mm.
When we're well rested, we're not just happier and healthier. but we're also more creative, more productive, and more engaged with the world around us.
So we've talked about how it benefits us individually, but it sounds like making rest a priority also has a positive effect on the people around us.
Definitely. When we're well rested, we're better able to be there for our loved ones,
Hmm?
to pursue our passions with more energy, and to contribute more to our communities. It's realizing that rest isn't a selfish thing, it's actually a generous act.
That's a really interesting way to think about it. It's not about removing ourselves from the equation. It's about making sure we can keep going and be at our best.
Exactly. Instead of seeing rest as something we squeeze in when we have a free moment, we can start seeing it as a fundamental part of a healthy and fulfilling life.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's one last thought you'd like to leave our listeners with?
In a world that's always pushing us to do more, be more, and achieve more, I want to encourage you to embrace the power of rest. Make it a non-negotiable part of your day. Listen to your body and give yourself permission to slow down, recharge, and rejuvenate. Not only will you benefit from it, but so will everyone around you.
That's a great note to end on. I think we've all learned a lot from this conversation about sleep and rest, from the science behind it to the practical ways we can make it part of our busy lives.
It's been great talking about this with you. I hope our listeners feel encouraged to prioritize sleep and rest, and to help create a culture that values well-being just as much as productivity.
Absolutely. It sounds like taking care of ourselves is not a luxury. It's actually a smart thing to do and something we owe to ourselves and the world. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. I hope you've gained some valuable insights and feel ready to make rest and recovery a priority in your own life.
It's been a pleasure. Sleep well and rest easy.